Okay, so I'm going to be right back because I need to. Ooh, I don't need to go anywhere. Right here. Okay, so I am going to open up the audiobook. First of all, I need to grab my copy. I want you to grab your copy. Remember at the very beginning, you put your name on your packet going along with the story and the packet story. I think that you know what I mean. Okay, well, that's, oh, okay. So, I bookmarked it, and hopefully it's gonna leave off the same place that I had intended. Beautiful. Okay, here it is. Now, I am going to... Oh, great. Okay, you know what? I don't know. That's going to work out very well. Okay, okay, just a second. I'm gonna be back, everybody. Get the light on here real quick.
I don't want to solve these technical problems.
Daddy, how do I connect the computer? You know, because it's charging and funny, but how do I connect it to the boombox? My what? Daddy, can you come up here with me easier so that I know what you're talking about? Because I don't want a big cord like right in the middle so that I could easily click on it without, looking.
Yeah.
So I want this, plugged in, but I also want it to connect to the boombox.
Well, unplug your boombox and bring the boombox over here. And set your boombox on there. And plug your boombox into here.
There's another cord there.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful.
And then now you just hook your computer up the exact same way you used to hook it up.
Okay, that's very helpful.
Okay.
Okay, everybody. So, got that clued away. Okay, what is it that you need? Because I'm busy right now. Why would I do that? You and I both know that that's not true, so why would I... Why would that's false. that's, if it's a secret, then that's false. I think that you know that I don't approve, and I would never, ever do anything like that. Never. If I do something even remotely similar, then I have very, very good reasons. I also wouldn't want to unsettle anybody prior to it. Okay, this is a conversation that is not worth my time right now, so thank you. I was a little bit blunt, but I'm just busy right now, so I'll just look forward to talking to you later. Okay? Bye. Okay, that was somebody. Okay, it doesn't matter. So we have to get started. I don't want to, this is what always happens. I get sidetracked. I get a conversation going, and then, it's just, I get tired, and we can't do everything. So, this is going to be a more edited meeting here. So that's what I need all of you to understand today. So, okay. So I want you to turn to page 13. Okay, I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay? Real quick. Then we have to get started. So, put your thinking cap on today. Let's see how many pages we have left of this. Okay, we definitely have a few pages left of it. Wow. Okay. Well, we'll just try to get through all of it as best we can. So here we go, everybody. Why is it quiet like this? This break, intermission? What's going on? I have no idea. Why is this not playing? Why is this? Oh, there has to be a reason. I'm going to find out what that reason is, and now I know. Now I know the reason. Whenever you think that there's not a reason, there was always a reason. It was always something, so.
Alice, radiant, the whole in a ghastly and inappropriate splendor, tried to throw upon his canvas an intent.
Okay, do I have to go through and find out
that morbid condition of the audit?
This is gonna be so frustrating.
Accompanied himself with rhyme verbal improvisations.
Okay,
the result
this
of
is
that
probably
intense
go.
mental collectiveness and concentration to which I have previously alluded as observable only in particular moments of the
Okay, here we
highest
go. Now we're
artificial
caught
excitement.
up.
The words of one of these rhapsodies I have easily remembered. I was, perhaps, the more forcibly impressed with it as he gave it, because in the under or mystic current of its meaning, I fancied that I perceived.
Okay, now we'll cut up to where we need to be. Personally, I prefer Mask of the Red Death. Have you ever read Mask of the Red Death? I read it last. It was at a kind of a weird time. It was like September 5th that I read it. I just opened the window. And, the Black Cat, Telltale Heart are both very, very good stories as well.
And for the first time, a full consciousness on the part of Usher of the tottering of his lofty reason upon her throne. The verses, which were entitled The Haunted Palace,
Beautiful.
ran very nearly, if not accurately, thus.
Can I get this up
In the
over here?
greenest of our valleys, by good angels tenanted, once a fair and stately palace, radiant palace, reared its head. In the monarch thought's dominion, it stood there. Never seraph spread opinion over fabric half so fair. Banners yellow, glorious, golden, on its roof did float and flow. This, all this, was in the olden time, long ago. And every gentle air...
Oh, and you can, follow along in the packet. So after this, we're going to answer the questions.
Ere that dallied in that sweet day, along the ramparts plumed and pallid, a winged odor went away. Wanderers in that happy valley, through two luminous windows saw spirits moving musically to a youth's well-tuned law. Round about a throne, where sitting Porphyrogene, in state his glory well befitting, the ruler of the realm was seen. And all with pearl and ruby glowing was the...
Okay, let's stop for a second. So, I just want to, kind of draw a little connection. So, first of all, he's, really putting his mental focus because, he's trying to, be in the present. That's kind of tying into me. So, think of, Chargar Gothicon. For those who wasn't, Scooby-Doo, who watched Chargar Gothicon doesn't, especially the person narrating it, this story sounds like a Chargar Gothicon type story. Round the flames of mist, hail the devil's eye. I mean, it's something, that kind of tone to it. So you can watch a couple clips of that, to kind of see where that connection lies. And I do wish that it was cloudy outside.
The fair palace door, through which came flowing, 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 and sparkling evermore, a troop of echoes, whose sweet duty was but to sing, in voices of surpassing beauty, the wit and wisdom of their king. But evil things, in robes of sorrow, assailed the monarch's high estate. Ah, let us mourn, for never morrow shall dawn upon him desolate. And round about his home, the glory that blushed and bloomed is but a dim remembered story of the old time entombed. And travellers now within that valley, through the red litten windows see vast forms that move fantastically to a discordant melody, while, like a rapid, ghastly river through the pale door, a hideous throng rush out forever, and laugh, but smile no more. I well remember that suggestions arising from this ballad led us into a train of thought wherein there became manifest an opinion of Usher's, which I mention not so much on account of its novelty, for other men have thought thus, as on account of the pertinacity with which he maintained it. This opinion, in its general form, was that of the sentience of all vegetable things. But in his disordered fancy, the idea had assumed a more daring character, and trespassed under certain conditions upon the kingdom of inorganization. I lack words to express the full extent or the earnest abandon of his persuasion. The belief, however, was connected, as I have previously hinted, with the grey stones of the home of his forefathers. The conditions of the sentence had been here, he imagined, fulfilled in the method of collocation of these stones, in the order of their arrangement, as well as in that of the many fungi which overspread them, and of the decayed trees which stood around, above all, in the long, undisturbed endurance of this arrangement, and in its reduplication in the still waters of the Tarn. Its evidence, the evidence of the sentience, was to be seen, he said, and I here started as he spoke, in the gradual yet certain condensation of an atmosphere of their own about the waters and the walls. The result was discoverable, he added, in that silent yet importunate and terrible influence which for centuries had molded the destinies of his family, and which made him, what I now saw him, what he was. Such opinions need no comment, and I will make none. Our books, the books which for years had formed no small portion of the mental existence of the invalid, were, as might be supposed, in strict keeping with this character of phantasm. We pored together over such works as the Ververs et Chartreuse of Grasset, the Belphegor of Machiavelli, the Heaven and Hell of Swedenborg, the Subterranean Voyage of Nicholas Klim of Holberg, the Chiromancy of Robert Flood, of Jean d'Indochine, and of Delechambre, the Journey into the Blue Distance of Tieck, and the City of the Sun of Campanella. One favorite volume was a small octavo edition of the Directorium Inquisitorium by the Dominican Aymeric de Geron, and there were passages in Pomponius Mela about the old African satyrs and Egypans, over which Usher would sit dreaming for hours. His chief delight, however, was found in the perusal of an exceedingly rare and curious book in quarto Gothic, the Manual of a Forgotten Church, the Vigiliae Mortuorum Secundum Coram Ecclesiae Maguntinae.
And the
I could
last
not
book
help
is
thinking of the wild
Chargacca.
ritual of this work, and of its probable influence upon the hypochondriac, when, one evening, having informed me abruptly that the Lady Madeline was no more, he stated his intention of preserving her corpse for a fortnight, previous to its final interment, in one of the numerous vaults within the main walls of the building. The worldly reason, however, assigned for this singular proceeding was one which I did not feel at liberty to dispute. The brother had been led to his resolution, so he told me, by consideration of the unusual character of the malady of the deceased, of certain obtrusive and eager inquiries on the part of her medical men, and of the remote and exposed situation of the burial ground of the family. I will not deny that when I called to mind the sinister countenance of the person whom I met upon the staircase, on the day of my arrival at the house, I had no desire to oppose what I regarded as at best but a harmless and by no means an unnatural precaution. At the request of Usher, I personally aided him in the arrangements for the temporary entombment. The body having been encoffined, we two alone bore it to its rest. The vault in which we placed it, and which had been so long unopened that our torches, half smothered in its oppressive atmosphere, gave us little opportunity for investigation, was small, damp, and entirely without means of admission for light. Lying at great depth, immediately beneath that portion of the building in which was my own sleeping apartment, it had been used, apparently, in remote feudal times, for the worst purpose of a dungeon keep, and in later days, as a place of deposit for powder or some other highly combustible substance, as a portion of its floor and the whole interior of a long archway through which we reached it were carefully sheathed with copper. The door of massive iron had been also similarly protected. Its immense weight caused an unusually sharp, grating sound as it moved upon its hinges. Having deposited our mournful burden upon trestles within this region of horror, we partially turned aside the yet unscrewed lid of the coffin and looked upon the face of the tenant. A striking similitude between the brother and sister now first arrested my attention, and Usher, divining perhaps my thoughts, murmured out some few words from which I learned that the deceased and himself had been twins, and that sympathies of a scarcely intelligible nature had always existed between them. Our glances, however, rested not long upon the dead, for we could not regard her unawed. The disease, which had thus entombed the lady in the maturity of youth, had left, as usual in all maladies of a strictly cataleptical character, the mockery of a faint blush upon the bosom and the face, and that suspiciously lingering smile upon the lip which is so terrible in death. We replaced and screwed down the lid, and, having secured the door of iron, made our way with toil into the scarcely less gloomy apartments of the upper portion of the house. And now, some days of bitter grief having elapsed, an observable change came over the features of the mental disorder of my friend. His ordinary manner had vanished. His ordinary occupations were neglected or forgotten. He roamed from chamber to chamber with hurried, unequal, and objectless step. The pallor of his countenance had assumed, if possible, a more ghastly hue, but the luminousness of his eye had utterly gone out. The once occasional huskiness of his tone was heard no more, and a tremulous quaver, as if of extreme terror, habitually characterized his utterance. There were times, indeed, when I thought his unceasingly agitated mind was laboring with some oppressive secret, to divulge which he struggled for the necessary courage. At times, again, I was obliged to resolve all into the mere inexplicable vagaries of madness, for I beheld him gazing upon vacancy for long hours in an attitude of the profoundest attention, as if listening to some imaginary sound. It was no wonder that his condition terrified, that it infected me. I felt creeping upon me, by slow yet certain degrees, the wild influences of his own fantastic yet impressive superstitions. It was, especially upon retiring to bed late in the night of the 7th or 8th day after the placing of the Lady Madeline in the dungeon, that I experienced the full power of such feelings. Sleep came not near my couch, while the hours waned and waned away. I struggled to reason off the nervousness which had dominion over me. I endeavored to believe that much, if not all of what I felt, was due to the bewildering influence of the gloomy furniture of the room, of the dark and tattered draperies which, tortured into motion by the breath of a rising tempest, swayed fitfully to and fro upon the walls, and rustled uneasily about the decorations of the bed. But my efforts were fruitless. An irrepressible tremor gradually pervaded my frame, and at length there sat upon my very heart an incubus of utterly causeless alarm. Shaking this off with a gasp and a struggle, I uplifted myself upon the pillows, and, peering earnestly within the intense darkness of the chamber, hearkened, I know not why, except that an instinctive spirit prompted me, to certain low and indefinite sounds which came through the pauses of the storm at long intervals I knew not whence. Overpowered by intense sentimental horror, unaccountable yet unendurable, I threw on my clothes with haste, for I felt that I should sleep no more during the night, and endeavored to arouse myself from the pitiable condition into which I had fallen, by pacing rapidly to and fro through the apartment. I had taken but few turns in this manner, when a light step on an adjoining staircase arrested my attention. I presently recognized it as that of Usher. In an instant afterward he rapped, with a gentle touch, at my door, and entered, bearing a lamp. His countenance was, as usual, cadaverously wan, but moreover, there was a species of mad hilarity in his eyes, and evidently restrained hysteria in his whole demeanor. His air appalled me, but anything was preferable to the solitude which I had so long endured, and I even welcomed his presence as a relief. "And you have not seen it?" he said abruptly, after having stared about him for some moments in silence. "You have not then seen it? But stay, you shall." Thus speaking, and having carefully shaded his lamp, he hurried to one of the casements, and threw it freely open to the storm. The impetuous fury of the entering gust nearly lifted us from our feet. It was indeed a tempestuous yet sternly beautiful night, and one wildly singular in its terror and its beauty. A whirlwind had apparently collected its force in our vicinity, for there were frequent and violent alterations in the direction of the wind, and the exceeding density of the clouds, which hung so low as to press upon the turrets of the house, did not prevent our perceiving the lifelike velocity with which they flew careening from all points against each other, without passing away into the distance. I say that even their exceeding density did not prevent our perceiving this, yet we had no glimpse of the moon or stars, nor was there any flashing forth of the lightning, but the undersurfaces of the huge masses of agitated vapor as well as all terrestrial objects immediately around us, were glowing in the unnatural light of a faintly luminous and distinctly visible gaseous exhalation which hung about and enshrouded the mansion. You shall not behold this, said I, shuddering to Usher as I led him with a gentle violence from the window to a seat. These appearances, which bewilder you, are merely electrical phenomena, not uncommon, or it may be that they have their ghastly origin in the rank miasma of the tarn. Let us close this casement. The air is chilling and dangerous to your frame. Here is one of your favorite romances. I will read, and you shall listen, and so we will pass away this terrible night together. The antique volume which I had taken up was The Mad Tryst of Sir Launcelot Canning, but I had called it a favourite of Usher's more in sad jest than in earnest, for, in truth, there is little in its uncouth and unimaginative prolixity which could have had interest for the lofty and spiritual ideality of my friend. It was, however, the only book immediately at hand, and I indulged a vague hope that the excitement which now agitated the hypochondriac might find relief, for the history of mental disorder is full of similar anomalies, even in the extremeness of the folly which I should read. Could I have judged, indeed, by the wild, overstrained air of vivacity with which he hearkened, or apparently hearkened, to the words of the tale, I might well have congratulated myself upon the success of my design. I had arrived at that well-known portion of the story where Ethelred, the hero of the tryst, having sought in vain for peaceable admission into the dwelling of the hermit, proceeds to make good an entrance by force. Here, it will be remembered, the words of the narrative run thus. And Ethelred, who was by nature of a doughty heart, and who was now mighty withal, on account of the powerfulness of the wine which he had drunken, waited no longer to hold parley with the hermit, who, in sooth, was of an obstinate and maliceful turn, but, feeling the rain upon his shoulders, and fearing the rising of the tempest, uplifted his mace outright, and, with blows, made quickly room in the plankings of the door for his gauntleted hand, and now pulling therewith sturdily, he so cracked and ripped and tore all asunder that the noise of the dry and hollow-sounding wood alarumed and reverberated throughout the forest. At the termination of this sentence, I started and, for a moment, paused. For it appeared to me, although I at once concluded that my excited fancy had deceived me, it appeared to me that from some very remote portion of the mansion there came indistinctly to my ears what might have been, in its exact similarity of character, the echo, but a stifled and dull one certainly, of the very cracking and ripping sound which Sir Launcelot had so particularly described. It was, beyond doubt, the coincidence alone which had arrested my attention, for, amid the rattling of the sashes of the casements and the ordinary commingled noises of the still increasing storm, the sound in itself had nothing, surely, which should have interested or disturbed me. I continued the story. But the good champion Ethelred, now entering within the door, was sore enraged and amazed to perceive no signal of the maliceful hermit, but, in the stead thereof, a dragon of a scaly and prodigious demeanour, and of a fiery tongue, which sate in guard before a palace of gold, with a floor of silver, and upon the wall there hung a shield of shining brass, with this legend enwritten: Who entereth herein, a conqueror hath been. Who slayeth the dragon, the shield he shall win.
Okay, so, I just want to pause right there. Let's see. Ooh, okay, so we're almost done with this. That's amazing. So, what's going on is that, in this house that they're in this house of Usher, at this point, the friend who comes on horseback is, seeing things. It's kind of like that one episode of Scooby-Doo, and there's a lot of comparisons to this. There was Franken Creepy movie, and there was an episode where, they all, I think you've all seen it way back in 2016. Wait, no, you saw it in 2015, I believe, and then we just saw it recently, last October. Just for the sake of watching them again, is that there was this house and it had firewood. Excuse me. So it had firewood. And when you would burn the firewood, the smoke, would go up into the air, and there was some chemical that would, go, because there's little, vent holes. It would go into your head, and somehow the chemical in that, while you were, sleeping especially, just doing things, it would go in your head and just, interfere with your, reality and, make you, see, things that aren't there. There's one Amuletto film about that, and of course that doesn't, that's not enough reason for why something like that would be real, because it's not. So, it's basically going on is that, this friend is coming to this house. The whole idea of this is that the house is very run down. It looks like Miss Havisham's house, where, she was living, and, the moment was froze and, she, was just losing her marbles, basically. So that's that's kind of the tone of what's going on in the story, is that, the whole thing is just lost its marbles. And so, it's just, this man is just so mentally sick. I don't mean mentally sick in the Plutonian, destructive kind of way. I mean, more just, depressed. And I find that this story right now is somewhat relatable to how I am feeling mentally and how a lot of other people are feeling mentally. So, what's going on is that the friend and the other, are, reading this book, which, all of them are, French, other, gothic horror type novels. And I know that, I know what you're thinking, this is very, very difficult to understand because of all that language, but I think, if you really get into the, writing, especially if you were to study Edgar Allan Poe, and he lived a very sad and short life, where he got into trouble with, the, I wonder if Pluto was in, Scorpio